The Intel Pentium 4, heart of many gaming machines in the 2000s. The Pentium 4 is based on the NetBurst architecture, available for 3 different CPU sockets and ranging in clock speeds from 1.4 to 3.8 GHz. It certainly divides opinions, loved by many, hated by others, but there's no denying that this processor has left its mark in history. There are many Pentium 4 processors. This one is different. The name, Extreme Edition, certainly raises expectations. What is it that makes this processor so extreme? How does it perform against the Athlon 64? And should you consider getting one for your retro gaming PC? This Pentium 4 Extreme Edition processor launched in February of 2004. It runs at a clock speed of 3.4 GHz and is available for the sockets 478 and 775. While the traditional Pentium 4 3.4 GHz came in the Northwood or Prescott core, the Extreme Edition features the Gallatin core. Originating from the Xeon MP, it has 512 kilobytes of level 2 cache, just like the standard Pentium 4 Northwood, but features a massive 2 megabytes of fast level 3 cache. This level 3 cache is the main reason for the higher performance. It is also the reason for the higher price tag. The Northwood had around 50 million transistors. The Gallatin has almost 180. This is extremely impressive, especially when you consider that Gallatin was produced on the older 130 nanometer process. The newer Prescott, for example, was already being manufactured on the smaller and cheaper 90 nanometer process. In short, and to put it into perspective, for the price of a single Gallatin processor, Intel could produce several of the standard Pentium 4 chips. Power draw is also extreme, having a TDP of 102.9 watts, which is at the same high level as the Prescott. I do recommend that you double check your motherboard that it officially supports this processor and is able to handle the higher power draw. Compared to the 3.2 GHz version of the Extreme Edition, the 3.4 GHz version can handle somewhat higher temperatures, but still less than the other processors, so a decent CPU cooler is a must. Extreme was also the price. At a time where all the other high-end processors would sell for $417, the Extreme Edition set a new benchmark and would set you back $999. Accounting for inflation, that's almost $1,300 by today's standards. With so many extremes, let us take a look at the performance and see if it can live up to the high expectations. First up, we have 3D Mark 2001 SE. In this benchmark, the Athlon 64 3400 Plus is the fastest processor, but the 3.4 GHz Extreme Edition is not far behind. Amongst the Pentium 4 processors, the Extreme Editions do take the lead, and with a decent margin. In 3D Mark 03, we can really see that the graphics card is holding things back. All the Pentium 4 and Athlon 64 processors offer high performance. The Extreme Editions do take the lead, but the margin is very small. The Athlon 64 processors are a little bit behind the Extreme Editions and the Prescott, but the results are pretty close to each other. In Aqua Mark III, the 3.4 GHz Extreme Edition takes the lead, clearly separating itself from all the other processors. With a score of just under 69,000, the Athlon 64 3400 Plus is a little bit behind the Pentium 4 chips, which all score over 70,000. The Code Creatures 4 benchmark is clearly dominated by the Athlon 64. The 3.4 GHz Extreme Edition can do little to change the outcome. It is the fastest Pentium 4 processor, but even the Athlon 64 3200 Plus manages to beat it. Serious Sam's Second Encounter, a classic OpenGL game, also runs very fast on the Athlon 64. The 3400 Plus is in front with the 3200 Plus not far behind. Both Extreme Edition processors do perform well in this game and are able to catch the 3200 Plus, but the 3400 Plus is still out of reach. X2 the Threat also runs very well on the Athlon 64 processors. They manage to beat all the standard Pentium 4s. The Extreme Edition processors, however, get a nice performance boost. We can see the 3.2 GHz model is able to match the 3400 Plus, but the 3.4 GHz Pentium 4 Extreme Edition pulls ahead and is the fastest processor in this benchmark. Comanche 4, the only benchmark that runs slower on the Prescott compared to Northwood. The two Extreme Editions are taking the lead in this benchmark. Even the slower 3.2 GHz version is able to stay in front of the Athlon 64 3400 Plus. Doom 3, a game that really shines on the Athlon 64. It is also the only benchmark that shows the Prescott actually outperforming the 3.2 GHz Extreme Edition. The 3.4 GHz version also does very well in this game, ending up a tiny bit in front of the 3400 Plus. In Far Cry, the 3.4 GHz Extreme Edition managed to hit 100 frames per second. Even the Athlon 64 3400 Plus, which also performs strongly in this benchmark, is not able to beat the Extreme Edition. In Fear, I am now recording the minimum FPS results as well, but only got the results for a few Pentium 4 processors. The 3.4 GHz Extreme Edition is almost able to get close to 60 FPS, clearly offering the highest performance out of the processors tested. Looking at the average frame rate, we can see that all the faster processors are being limited by the graphics card. 91 FPS seems to be the limit of what is possible here. The 3.2 and 3.4 GHz versions of the Extreme Edition, as well as the 3200 Plus and 3400 Plus, all achieve the same results of 91 frames per second. It will be interesting to see what the results look like with a faster graphics card. And we got some results for Half-Life 2 Lost Coast. This is also a very recent addition to my benchmark process, so we also only have a few Pentium 4 results. And once again, the 3.4 GHz version of the Extreme Edition is the fastest processor in this game. Time to analyze the results. The 3.4 GHz Pentium 4 Extreme Edition does indeed offer extreme performance. It is quite impressive to see what this processor is able to get out of the good old socket 478. We can see why Intel decided to launch the Extreme Edition. The standard Pentium 4 processors simply didn't have a chance against the newer Athlon 64. Now do keep in mind that my videos are following the timeline of back in the day. So currently we are in February of 2004. So if you're wondering, what about socket 939 and 775? What about PCI Express, dual channel memory, and what about the Athlon FX? Please relax. All of these cool technologies will get their time to shine. I can't tell you when, but it will happen. Looking at the benchmarks, the Athlon 64 3400 Plus was the faster processor in 3D Mark 2001 and Code Creatures, whereas the 3.4 GHz Extreme Edition Dominator 3D Mark III, as well as Aqua Mark III. When it comes to the games, the 3.4 GHz Extreme Edition ended up being the faster processor in most of the games. X2 The Threat, Comanche 4, Doom 3 and Far Cry all ran faster on the Extreme Edition. Serious Sam the Second Encounter is the only game that ran faster on the 3400 Plus, and Fear was a tie, being severely limited by the graphics card. Having extreme performance is great, but the Extreme Edition comes with other extremes. Price is one. While you don't have to pay anywhere close to the $999 that this processor would set you back in 2004, this processor is still very much in demand, and you will definitely have to look around a little bit to find one. And if you do, be prepared to spend a substantial premium. I was looking at availability when producing this video and couldn't find a single listing, so this is something to really think about. Extreme is also the power consumption and heat. You will need to source a decent CPU cooler. I cannot recommend using any of the Intel stock coolers. An all copper cooler from Salman or Thermalright is the way to go. But once again, they aren't that easy to find, and usually you will have to spend a little bit more. Do make sure that your motherboard fully supports this processor and can handle the higher power draw. Careful when using tower coolers, as these motherboards expect airflow around the CPU socket area. Back in the day, coolers were of the sunflower type, blowing down air onto the motherboard and cooling components around the CPU socket, especially the voltage regulator modules and capacitors. So the performance is awesome, the power draw and the heat not so much. This brings us to the question: should you get this processor for a retro gaming PC? In my opinion, if you're looking at just the performance, you are not gonna get a good deal. However, the Extreme Edition is sought after not so much for its performance, but for what it represents. It stands for the ultimate processor available for the socket 478. There's just something really cool and special about having the last of its kind. Owning a processor that used to sell for $999 and that simply was out of the reach for most of us back in the day is an experience that is difficult to explain, but awesome when you do. Seeing the Extreme Edition BIOS post screen and the logo in CPU set might be worth every single dollar you invest into such a processor. Also keep in mind that this processor is highly collectible. It will most certainly continue to go up in value, so don't let a high price put you off right away. So although this video about the Extreme Edition represents the final chapter for the socket 478, I'm not quite done with this socket, but that's all I can say at this point of time. June of 2004 will be the next stop in our PC retro gaming journey. I cannot give you a date, but let me tell you that I have some really cool videos planned. 2004 is a really interesting year. Lots of new technologies, so I'll be busy acquiring parts, testing hardware, and of course benchmarking, creating charts, and having an awesome time playing around with hardware I didn't have back in the day. As always, please subscribe and share this video. And know that I read every single comment. You might not get a reply, but I do read every single comment and work very hard to keep improving my videos. So if you have something to say, please share it down below. I would love to hear from you. Thank you for watching and have a great day.